Hello, lovely patrons. Woo, it is currently Tuesday morning here in Australia, and I am wrapping things up today as far as finishing up the filming that I need to do, finishing up my packing. We leave on Sunday, this coming Sunday, for a 12-week trip to Europe, to France, Spain, and Italy. And during that time, I'll be teaching for 4 of those weeks. 2 of the week-long retreats are back-to-back, so that's a bit scary because I've never done back-to-back before. But I'm teaching with 2 different companies who are taking care of absolutely everything. So I'm turning up to just devote myself to teaching, to being with the students, to helping them express themselves with new materials. And somebody else is doing all of the organizing for day trips and meals and accommodation and all of that. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. And then we also have Marco's coming with me, and we also have 8 weeks off to explore. I was just thinking in my head, when is this video going to air? But I think Cece is going to try and jump on this one pretty quickly to edit it and pop it into Patreon. So yes, hopefully it'll be in there this week before we actually leave. Yes, and I will be dropping in to say hi from Europe as well. So yeah, taking you along a little bit with us on the journey. Now, this month, you guys all voted for the topic of how to fall in love with your sketchbook and how to simplify things. And this is such a dear subject to my heart for the last year, because I really, really, really wanted to fall in love with a sketchbook practice. And for 25 years, I've been painting. And when I was studying, I had to show some kind of working out, thumbnails, things like that. When I was working on a body of work for my fine arts degree, which I didn't actually finish. I got all the way to my final year. I had a few subjects left, and this whole art business just took off like crazy, and I was traveling. But anyway, I remember thinking back then that, I was kind of like pretending in my sketchbook. Sometimes I'd even do the work, do the whole body of work, do the canvases and everything, and then go back and like make up little thumbnail sketches, because I just wasn't, I don't know, it's been difficult for me. I think I'm a person that jumps straight in, and I'm not really a preparation person. So it has been a little bit of a challenge, but I've managed to tweak my thinking. And so I'm no longer working my sketchbooks to kind of say, oh, I'm doing a little study because I want to do a larger work, based on that study. I'm looking at my sketchbooks now as a place of exploration and a place to practice and a place to experiment. And so, for example, when I get new tools like all of this background here, which is, we've got this grayscale wallpaper in our Airbnb studio, and I had just bought a set of 6 Pitt brush pens in grayscale. And so all of the different grayscales were there, and I thought, oh, perfect. I'll be able to practice with those doing a little still life of the shelf in our Airbnb. So I'm using it as a place to experiment. And, one of the things about experiments is that they're valuable whether they turn out or not. And this is something that I heard just a few days ago, an artist that I follow, Marie Noelle Worm. She was saying that if you look at your sketchbook as a place to create experiments, then everything you do in there has value. Whether it works out or it doesn't work out, you learn something from it. There is information that comes out of that experiment, right? And so it's also a fantastic place for us to work in small scale and to, over time, to lose a few things, to lose that self-critical voice, to lose that judgment, also to to play, to kind of lose that hesitation. You know, sometimes we hesitate to use new materials on a larger format or on something that we're trying to create, say, for example, to sell, because, you know, what if it doesn't turn out? And so by playing in your sketchbook, you can explore and experiment with lots of different things. And there's not even a necessity for you to finish a sketch. This little sketch, I was trying to capture this beautiful light show, not a light show, but there were these purple and fluorescent kind of magenta lights that were set up outside this church in Mexico. And the light on the church was just incredible. And at our retreat, all of us were trying to kind of capture that. And I didn't finish it, but I still like this sketch, even though it's not what I was going for. I learned some things during this sketch and I like it for what it is, you know. A sketchbook is a place to try out small form things. So I've got lots and lots of these little trees and foliage swatches that if I'm creating a larger painting, and I want to have lots of different trees in the garden, then I can actually go back and jog my memory and go, oh yeah, I could put a couple of these in the background. I could put some of these in the midground, and then I could put some of these and these in the foreground. You know, how would that work together? And so, you know, it's a great place to keep visual records of the things that you're kind of working on as well. So it's also a great place for your nieces and your grandchildren to draw in, and they love to do that. And I'll talk about that in a little while. So great place to experiment. I'm just looking at what I've written down here. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is finding inspiration from other artists. And obviously you guys are here and you find inspiration in the work that I do. And I also find inspiration in the work of other artists, especially when there's something that I am trying to get, you know. And so if you can kind of figure out and tell yourself, what is it that I'm heading towards? What do I want to do? And for me, I want to use more narrative and storytelling and in my paintings, in my work, small and large. I want to include more figures. I want to be able to interpret photos of places that we've been. And I want to have a style in my sketchbook too. And so that's what I'm learning. Like my sketchbooks right now are just a hodgepodge, right? But that's okay because I'm in learning mode. So in learning mode, it's okay to be inspired by other artists. And the sketchbook is the perfect place to copy other artists' work. So if you want to try and figure out, so at the moment I'm just besotted by Daria. She is Daria_Ulele on Instagram. And I just love, love, love her work. If you look her up, she does a lot of collage as well and incorporate this kind of loose, sketchy style with her collage. So I ordered a few prints and postcards from her. She's somewhere in Eastern Europe, I believe. Maybe in Serbia? I'm not sure, but anyway, when you try to copy another artist in your sketchbook, what you're really trying to do is figure out, how did they do that? How did they get that, right? And so you start to isolate and you start to think, what came first for a start? How could I approach this as to what actually came first? And so I actually did this sketch, my kind of interpretation of it. Let me pull you back out again. There we go. With what I had, and I'm happy with it. Like it just made me kind of feel a little bit more like I could understand where she was coming from. Of course, I'm not going to go out and create a series of paintings that look exactly like Daria's, because that is against the law, right? And it's not something that you want to do anyway. But in this kind of an exercise, I'm just trying to get inside her mind and her body in a way, you know, to figure out what's the energy of these marks. How does she kind of figure out the light and the shade? The perspective, you know, the people that are larger in the front, the birds that are larger in the front and smaller towards the back. And so, you know, I just kind of worked my way through it with what I had. What materials do I have that I could do something like this with? And so I started with large swatches of color with what did I use? I used some Ecoline brush markers, and I think I might have used some Caran d'Ache Neo Color 2s as well for those blocks of color in the background, which I then, I just realized I've got a tree there and I didn't actually put, I didn't put anything on top of that tree. We'll fix that, won't we? So Neo Colors, and then I used pencil for the details. I love the way that she uses a lot of white space, and that she also uses a lot of linear work on top of, or as well as, you know, this kind of scribbly brush strokes. Whoops, just broke my Caran d'Ache. Let's pop that tree in up there. So see, I'm going, you know, the trees went straight over the top of the buildings that were underneath them. If I wanted to, I could, you know, add some other things in, change it up a little bit, experiment with composition. But for this one, I just wanted to just feel, mostly, I think my brain gets confused with what comes first. So mostly I wanted to figure out what comes first and then what kind of materials can you use over the top. So I used the Ecoline brush pens and some Caran d'Ache, which I then used a wet brush to actually create that block of color and this block of color, Ecoline here and here, and then over the top with some Caran d'Ache crayons and some pencil and a felt marker to come down here and put in the people and the birds, right? So that was a really, really helpful, you know, oh, the scribbly sky, you know, like I never would have kind of thought to do just a scribble for the sky, but I love it. I love the freshness. I love the energy, and I love the white space. And to me, it works. It works really well, and I'm happy with my interpretation. And that exercise helped me to move further towards finding my own kind of simplified style. Okay, so that's that one. Pop that away. Now, what happens then is once you've done an exercise like that, you can take it into something like, for example, interpreting one of your own photos. Not in this one, perhaps in this one. Yes. So in this one, I really wanted to take a bit of Daria into this sketch to interpret this very busy scene, which is my second time trying to do this sketch. It's a real challenge for me because there's perspective and there's a lot of detail. And so for my brain to simplify, it was actually quite exhausting. And I hope that it will become easier over time. But I used some of those principles that I learned from copying Daria's to get this kind of loose sketch, using lots of different pencils, leaving some white space. I still feel like I maybe didn't leave enough white space, but you know, that's something that I'll work on. There were just other things, you know, I felt like this negative space up here because there was so much line work. I felt like I couldn't do a scribble for the sky this time because there was a lot of line work up around this area. So I felt like I needed solid blocks. So, but anyway, it's just like working things out in your mind, being inspired by someone else, and then taking what you learned from that and coming into something of your own. So copying artists that you're inspired by. Let's say there's another one that's, you know, trying to work again in that loose kind of way, using a limited palette, and also choosing only certain lines. So not having to choose every single thing that you see. So I did an exercise some months back on, where is it? On Patreon. At the time I was following Taria's Sketchy Adventures. And where is it? I don't think she's on Patreon anymore. But she was looking at another artist that worked in a very simplified way. Let's see if it's over here. And she was doing the same. She was trying to figure out how, here, this one, how, you know, how to simplify, how to break things down. So she was looking at an artist named Christian Eccles, and together we did this one, which is a copy of one of his works. And then I took a photo that I had taken in Granada, which was like an old sandstone brick house, medieval house, and a palm tree, a couple of people, and a door. I think there was also a washing line. But because I'd already done these swatching of colors for this one, I just thought I would build this little simplified scene around this swatch. And in a way, it almost kind of reminds me of the clothes. And even though I didn't put a clothesline in, you know, it just was a little experiment in leaving a bunch of stuff out and just adding a few things in. And I think it's really, really quite beautiful. And that white space, it's really enticing, isn't it? It just really drags you in, pulls you in. So that was, you know, another one where we looked at simplification. This one here, I did in Mexico last year. And this is another tip that is really, really, really helpful. And that is to, instead of throwing away your palettes at the end of a painting session, I talk about this all the time, grab those palettes, or even, you know, when you open a new paint jar and you've got that paper thing on top, instead of throwing that away with paint on it, just dab that down all over a page, and you'll have all of these interesting backgrounds to begin working with. So that this one right here, I think this one's on YouTube. It turned out beautifully. I just dabbed down the palette, and then I moved some of the paint around with a brush, and then I brought in this beautiful pale lilac acrylic gouache around the piece to kind of tie it all together. And that created a palette that I'm most certainly going to use in some future artworks. I love it so much. And I never would have tried this particular palette without having just pressed down my paint palette, and then this new little color that I had that had just come in, I just purchased, just trying that out around those browns and greens. And I love it. I love it so much. So, you know, experimenting and dabbing down paint after you finish a session is just such a great way to utilize your sketchbook and to learn new things. So yeah, this one was done in the Caran d'Ache Neocolors and Ecoline brush pens over the top of just a swatchy background where I'd used up a bunch of colors from another work. And then this one here, similar to that work that I did on that Taria Sketchy Adventures, I was just trying to keep the palette more limited, and in this one I was putting a few things together. So you've seen this one before. It's somewhere down in the videos. If you haven't seen it, you can scroll down and find it. And so this was a photo that I took in Oaxaca, 4 separate photos, and then tied them together, keeping white space as well. Okay, so so I hope those tips are helpful. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, your sketchbook allows you to do whatever you want, right? And one thing that I'm finding is that it's really, really, what's the word? I'm learning so much from taking one subject that I enjoy and then trying it out in different ways. So last month we had the boats, Batty for Boats, as our inspiration. Now since then these are 2 boats that I took photos of down a trip down the coast last April. And in this one, I did them on brown paper in this brown paper sketchbook, which is from Artway. And I did it all in oil pastels with a little bit of gel pen for detail. And then I've also done it in collage. Let's see if I can find that. I've done it in watercolor, and then I've done a collage, and then I've done a negative painting as well. Maybe I won't be able to find all of those things. But what I wanted to do today was really quickly to just do it again in a very simple way. And to do it, let's see. Let's do it. Just looking at some pages that I have prepared. Looking at the possibilities here. All right. Let's not think too much about it. That's another tip. Don't think too much. I wonder what it would be like if I did it on here. You know, let's do a big fun spread on this one. And let's do my red boat. And I'll just pop it up in front here. And I'm going to do it super quick. It won't stay. I'll do it like that. Okay, I can see it. You can't. But, okay. Put this over here. Pull this out. You can see the blue one, but you can't see the red one. But that's what I'm going to be doing. Now, another good thing to do is to just say, what have I got in front of me? Now, most of my art things that I use all the time are packed away, ready for Europe, but I've left my pencil case out because I'm taking that with me on the plane. And so I'm going to see what I've put in my pencil case, whether I've put the right things. I recently purchased some Caran d'Ache Neocolor 1s. The difference between those and the Neocolor 2s is that these ones, they do not spread. Like the Neocolor 2s are more like a watercolor, you can spread them. All right, so I'm going to take out my reds and just take out a few colors that I think I might use. Okay, and I'm going to give myself 10 to 15 minutes to do this one. And let's take out, this one is actually a Neocolor 2. These are Neocolor 1s. So, like I said, the only difference is that if I put a brush onto this one, it will actually spread the color around, whereas this one, these ones it won't. And then I'm going to grab, I need something white. Something white. Oh, I've got a little bit of white gouache in here. And I've got this pencil here. All right, that should get me started. Maybe this one. And you know what, maybe? You know what I've got? I've got some Oprah acrylic gouache in my pencil case because I love adding a touch of that in. So let's just put these over here, and then really quickly, I'm going to do a sketch. Really fun. I'm not going to worry too much about proportions. As well. Right over the top of this painted background. So I haven't done this yet with this boat. I haven't actually pulled it over the top of a painted background in this way. I did it a little bit of a different way. And then we need a line up here. So the other thing is, the more that you do practice the same thing, the more that your brain kind of starts to understand what it is that you're, or to remember, you know, the lines that you're drawing, the blocks that you're making. And you can do it a little bit differently each time. boat. All right, let's get some of these in. This is a Holbein artist colored pencil in sepia. And I think the beauty also of painting something or drawing something that you've drawn a few times, apart from your brain kind of remembering what it is, becoming familiar with it, you just become a lot more brave about your interpretation because you've already had a bit of success. You've already kind of had fun with it. And so now you're kind of, you know, your mind is kind of locked into that feeling of like, this is fun. I'm having a lot of fun, right? Okay, so let's try the Neo color in the white and see how that goes. Actually, I need to get a little bit more of that in. And some balls, some floaty things hanging off the edge. Okay, and then we've got a white bit that comes out. Ooh, they break pretty easily. I'm pressing pretty hard. Let me get the windows in, maybe in this color. And then there's red on top. A little red roof. Would you call it a roof on a boat? I don't know. And then there's a turquoise bit. There's some more white. And I'm just breaking it down into shapes here. I don't know what any of this is called, but I'm looking at shapes. Interesting ways that those shapes work together. Let's get some more windows in here. Another bit of roof up here. I didn't even look at the time. Here I am. I'll give myself 10-15 minutes and then I didn't check the time. That's okay. Whatever it takes, it takes. Let's just try this. Actually, I don't even know if I've primed this one yet. Just want to see if it gives me more coverage than this Neo color. While I'm holding that down, I can do that with my left hand. And then I can add some extra things in here. You're probably wondering what's going to happen to all this, right? I'm going to show you something really fun. But actually, I probably shouldn't put these in first, but let's just see what happens. See what happens. It takes a while for these to activate sometimes. Okay, here. Okay, before I do anything else, here comes the white. Let's get in a little bit of white with this Posca pen. That's better. Much stronger. I like it because it's really big and chunky too, so it's forcing me to stay loose. Leave a little bit of that color showing. Just gives us a bit more depth. Okay, that's really fun. Okay. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm quickly going to bring over a wash of a couple different colors. I'm going to bring a little bit of indigo underneath some of the boat. And then I'm also going to bring a little bit of marine blue. And I'm going to extend it over here. Well, there's not a lot of marine blue left in this one. So I'll use what I have. And then I'll use something else as well. Whatever is in front of me. So this is, another great thing to do when you are experimenting. Just use what you have. This is a Amsterdam Sky Blue Light. Put a few drops of that in here and there. All right, and there's a couple of things that I need to get onto this boat first, which is this big, I don't know what it's called. Oh. It's got rope on it. Oh, I like that color in there as well. Maybe I could put a little bit of that up here. You could try and figure out whether it's all going to be ocean or whether I'm going to have some sky in there. Because I haven't made my mind up yet. Or maybe it would be ambiguous. All right. Little beautiful little transformational tool here is to bring the indigo and the marine blue into the foreground. So the boat is now in the ocean, but it's not just a flat ocean, it's an interesting ocean because it's got all of that beautiful mark making underneath it. Bit of water, make sure you've got enough water to kind of move it around. Not necessary to go all the way to the end if you don't want to. I'm going to go right over those balls and then put those back in again later. So this is where I'm, talking about like having to figure out what you do first and what comes later. And all those things are figure outable by just doing, right? Just practicing, doing lots of work. Again, this is probably go over the top of that. If I lose some lines, I can put them back in. So interesting, if I do leave a little bit at the top there, I'm going to just see what it feels like if I do that. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll look in the... I don't know. don't know whether it really adds anything. I think it might be better to just do the whole thing. Although, having done that, that Neo Color 1 is resisting a little bit up there. So we're going to have to just work with that. But I think it's okay. I think it's actually adding a little bit of texture, adding some interest. All right, so now that we've done that, now the bow is standing out a little bit more. Oh, this little bit through here also should be water. All right. And I'm going to have to actually let that dry to bring in all of the details. Oh, and I just realized I went over some of the white things that are supposed to be at the top there. This is where it's always handy to have your paper towels next to you. Just lift a bit of that off. That one there. Okay, so I'm going to try and work wet into wet for a minute, just so you can see, you know, where I'm going with it. So I might bring in some more line work. I could go even darker if I wanted to with a black felt pen, but I think I'm going to stick with these ones for the time being, although I am tempted. What do I have over here? I have a black Stabilo. Let's see. Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that. So I'm taking this with me. I'm glad I just found it. That's an aquarellable Stabilo pencil. It's really super creamy. That's nice. And then let's start to add in just a few little details across the top of the Neo Color. This particular pencil, I'm really lucky I just had this with me. It actually will write on paper, glass, plastic, and metal. So it's really great to go over the top of lots of things. Muddy things up over the top here. All right, and then we need to probably wait a little bit for these ones, just until this dries, but I'm just going to try and bring in a couple of things. Oh, that's interesting. So when I dab at this, some of that little, so fun. See, you just never know what's going to happen. When I dab at that ink, some of those little balls come back. But you know what I'm going to be able to do? Here it comes, fluorescent pink. I'm going to put a little bit of fluorescent pink across here. Straight onto the boat. A little bit, oh, that's a lot. All right. And then I'm going to move that around and add in some there. That might have been a little bit too much, but I don't want it to kind of overtake the whole thing. Oh, look, that's pretty good. All right, now let's do a little bit up here. Okay. If you put too much paint on anywhere, all you need to do is dab it back. And I'm really loving this little boat. Very, very cute. When it's completely dry, let's just see what else I can bring in here. While we're waiting, I can probably bring in a little bit of the railing. Obviously you can see the white here, but you can't see the white over here. So that's when I will come over here and change that to this brown pencil, although it's not working too well, but it's working as a scratching tool. So that will do me. This is missing its little red roof here. Good. And then there are just a few white lines that are missing that I probably will have to reinforce later on. So like through here, you can kind of get a gist of where I will put them, but I will come back in and add those in a little later on. But for now, I think I'm really happy. Let's just put a little name on here. Libre. Free. And then let's just dab at this. Ooh, a little bit of, let's go with that, little happy accident. Put some on both sides. And then we need to have one red ball just here, but that again, that's probably going to have to wait until the rest is dry, but it's going to be just about here, and there's going to be a kind of a white rope or something here for it to hang from. So we'll just kind of put that in so I can remember that that's going to come later. I'm so glad I found that aquarellable Stabilo. I'm putting that into my pencil case right now. I'm just looking for a skewer because I can probably, there we go, probably add in some line work into some of those wet areas. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the whole little chat about simplifying in our sketchbooks, and that this was a helpful little demonstration for you. I think it's super cool. I could also just add in, again, I could wait until things are dry, but I can add in some little birds and stuff as well. So there we go. Happy little boat. All right, guys, I will talk to you soon. Bye.